What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to the 21st season of Gridiron Glory. We've got great football ahead of us, and we are excited to see how each of our four conferences start and finish this year. Southeastern Ohio football has so much underrated talent, and all of us here are ready to showcase the hidden gems of Ohio football. Can the Sheridan Generals reload? Can Trimble's defense shut out every team this season? Who comes out of the TVC Ohio, and who will run the FAC? Here we go. Gridiron Glory Season 21 starts now. I'm Joseph Hennessy, your host for the 21st season of Gridiron Glory, and I'm so ready. Week 1 is 7 days away because, well, I missed football. Aggressive, hard-nosed, passionate football. Southeastern Ohio football is like nothing else. Friday night lights with the whole town coming out to see how the teams do. Seniors lead the way and underclassmen make a name for themselves. You bring glory, we report it. Now in our coverage last season, we saw a ton of great moments. Let's get to it. This is our preview show, which means we have to talk about last season. Rivalry games got heated, and some teams' playoff shots came down to the final game. We saw 8 of our teams make it to Week 11. Here's the review of the 2018 football season from each conference.
What is a better way to start the 2018 season review than with the Trimble Tomcats? Trimble shut out 7 teams in the regular season, ultimately winning the TVC Hocking, creating the momentum needed for another deep playoff run. They scratched and clawed out the eyes of more and more opponents and made it all the way to the state championship game in Division 7. The Waterford Wildcats finished their regular season at 8-2, falling to second place in the Hocking. Their offense began and ended with Braden Belleville, who broke the school record for career rushing yards last season. They averaged around 36 points per game, and their defense only gave up 10 points a game. The Wildcats' season ended with a second-round loss in the playoffs. In the TVC Ohio, Athens bullied their foes. The Bulldogs went 9-1 in the regular season behind the play of Player of the Year candidate Clay Davis. The offense averaged more than 40 points a game, with head coach Ryan Adams leading the squad. The Bulldogs' season ended after a tough loss to top-seeded Bishop Hartley in the Division III Region 11 playoffs. The MVL showed their dominance of talent as Tri-Valley, Sheridan, and John Glenn all made the playoffs. Tri-Valley won a share of the MVL title under new head coach Kevin Fell and tried to recreate the spark that ignited their state championship run the year prior. The Scotties won arguably the best game in our coverage last season against the Sheridan Generals with an extra point kick by Caden Bay in overtime. In the playoffs, they upset Barberton, but ultimately fell to Wadsworth in the second round. For the Sheridan Generals, they were the other team that got the share of the MVL title. They had Gridiron Glory Player of the Year, Ethan Heller, running the show. The two-sport athlete, alongside wideout Jacob Rhodes and lineman Taylor Deem, led the Generals marching into the postseason. The aggressive offense and stout defense beat Bellbrook in the first round and Granville in the second, but lost in the third round, falling just short of the state semis. John Glenn got off to a rocky start at 1-3 before the Muskies shot out of a cannon, winning their final 6 games and securing a playoff spot. Although they lost to Indian Valley in the first round, John Glenn showed that it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and in high school football, anything can happen. The Frontier Athletic Conference was fueled by the Jackson Ironmen and the Hillsboro Indians. Hillsboro surprised everyone in the FAC but themselves. Hillsboro only had 2 winning seasons since 2010. In 2018, they went 9-1, running over the opposition in their path. Deion Burns and Josh Keats utilized their size and strength to go through defenses all season. Mason Swain also got the job done on his feet while showing that he could throw the ball just as well as other quarterbacks in the FAC. As for the Ironmen, Jared Eisenhower on offense and Matt Humphreys on defense attacked teams with an aggression they couldn't handle. In Week 10, Jackson had to battle the Chillicothe Cavaliers for the league title and a playoff spot. They got the W, but the Ironmen ended the season after a first-round loss to Granville. Overall, our fans got to witness 8 teams play in the playoffs and fight for the ultimate glory on the gridiron.
Let's start things off close to home. TVC Hocking lead reporter Sam Wiesnith is here with her preseason predictions and summer updates.
First of all, I've got to say it is great to be back, but after our Gridiron Glory Media Day, I think the players may be more excited about Friday nights than we are. Some Hocking teams have seen big changes over the past couple months, but we'll dive into that in a bit. Let's start things off with some preseason power rankings. In first, I have none other than the Trimble Tomcats. Last year, not only were they the TVC Hocking champs, but they were also the state runner-ups. With big names returning like Connor Wright, Cam Kittle, and Ian Joyce, they really can only get better. I'm excited to see if they have what it takes to seal the deal this year. The second and third spots are held by the Waterford Wildcats and the Belpre Golden Eagles. I think these teams are consistent enough to stay in the top three. In fourth is the Eastern Eagles. Last year, they had a slight edge over the Southern Tornadoes, who I placed in fifth. These rivals play each other in Week 10. Last year, Eastern defeated the Tornadoes by just 1 point, but this year, Southern lost some big names, and I think that will give the Eagles a larger lead this year. For spots 6 and 7, I have South Gallia and Miller. I think these two teams will also have the same results as last year, with South Gallia having the upper hand. In 8th, I have Federal Hocking, who is hoping to shake a 4-year winless streak, and I think they might be able to make it happen against Wahama, who's placed in 9th. Even though the Tomcats have been consistent over the past couple years and they have a lot of big names returning, they knew that in order to have another shot at that state title, they had to put in a lot of work this summer.
Lifting, getting stronger, that's because our biggest thing is going out there and hit you until you quit, so getting in the weight room every day is mandatory.
We have to work on our passing game. Our run game was insane last year, and really it's the same thing this year to try to work on the passing game to round out the offense. This year, really, our receivers have definitely picked it up, and I think we're going to be surprise some people with that.
I feel like we're a better team. We work a lot better together this year than we did last year. And I think we're going to get ourselves a championship.
To be able to get to the playoffs, to get to that state championship game, it's all just a dream until we beat Week 1 and Week 5 Worthington Christian.
We picked up Worthington Christian this year, and we're just really excited to see what we can do against them, to see how we could do in the playoffs potentially.
And just like they said, so many teams in this area can play a good ground game, but the key to a successful playoff run is the ability to pass the ball well. The Tomcats aren't the only team in the TVC that focused on strengthening their passing game this summer. The Southern Tornadoes are a team we always look to for their passing prowess, but there is a big name missing from their roster that could make all the difference. Their star quarterback Logan Drummer graduated, as well as wide receivers Brody Dutton and Austin Baker. Last season, Drummer racked up well over 1,500 passing yards, more than anyone in the TVC Hocking. Now it's time for senior quarterback Gage Schuler to step up, and he knows he has some big shoes to fill. But lucky for him, he's had some special help at practice this summer.
Yeah, he's at practice just about every day. He's pointing out, telling me what better things I can do, and I try to fix them as much as I can. Yeah, I've been working pretty hard. Come a long way since the beginning. We got longer to go. Not where I need to be yet, but I'll be there.
Come on, run that again. Well, I tell you what, we had a
Successful on Friday nights, they need to stay motivated. But there's one team in the TVC Hocking who, despite having a 4-year winless streak, has more drive than ever. The Federal Hocking's new head coach, Jeff Diddy, has given the Lancers a whole new outlook on this season.
Come on, run that again. Well, I tell you what, we had a very high mountain to climb, and we're still climbing. Come on, guys, communicate. I live in the district. I love football. Since we've been here 5 years, I've watched this program struggle, and I thought it would actually be a challenge to come in and see what we could do with it. Here we go. Hey, remember, you need to be a minimum of 10 yards.
Recently, we've been in kind of a drought, just with knowledge of the game and stuff. And this year, we actually got some really good help and coaches and great coaching staff. And this season is so much different in knowledge and how well prepared we are.
Okay, you're in an X for good. Right away, it was getting back to the basics, teaching basic blocking, tackling, fundamentals of football. It might sound trivial, but we would sit there and go over anything from here's what it means to get a first down, right? To, more advanced, blocking and X and O's concepts. I need you to stand back because I need you to watch what's happening. I think probably the biggest area where we've grown the most is our dedication to what we're doing. Run it again, run it again.
We don't have a lot of guys, but the guys we do have really want to be here, and they work really hard. We really got to just stay strong and just really be ready to play when the time comes.
At the end of the day, I'm here because I want them to win. I'm also here because I want the program to be successful. I told them when I first came in, part of being a winner is acting like one. And that just means doing the little things right. Let's go, run it, run it, run it.
Well, Coach Diddy brings a lot of excitement to us. He really gets us fired up, ready to go. To me, that's a really big thing because I feel like you got to be able to play for each other and yourself, but you got to be able to play for your coach, and we really want to play for Coach.
Of all of the teams at Gridiron Glory Media Day, the Fed Hawk Lancers were by far the most excited to get back on the field, and I cannot wait to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. It's amazing to see how someone could have such a large impact on a team in such short time. We'll definitely keep an eye on them. Thank you. Now stay tuned to Gridiron Glory because in about 10 minutes we're going to show you what happened at our 4th annual Media Day event. It was filled with tons of talent and great coaches, but stay tuned to see what we saw. Player interviews and pictures, some fun GIFs of the players showing off their personalities, and dance moves and more. Stay tuned. It's a good one. Now, last time we saw TVC Ohio football, the Athens Bulldogs took down the Nelsonville York Buckeyes for the conference crown. TVC Ohio lead reporter Jacob Murray is here to tell us how that could possibly be the case again this year. Jacob?
Joseph, the TVC Ohio in that final game between the Bulldogs and Buckeyes the last 2 years has been determined because of that game. And that's something that I don't see changing as we enter the 2019 season. Now, one of these two teams, the Nelsonville York Buckeyes, got off to an 0-3 start. And this is something that Coach Rusty Richards and his team looks to avoid this upcoming year.
4 of our 5 teams are all playoff contenders from last year, so our schedule is a lot like last year. You know, we don't perform, we might be right where we were. If so, you know, we got a lot of experience coming back. You know, ball bounces our way. You know, maybe we can come out on top on some of these games. But definitely a challenging schedule at the beginning.
Right, and their tough schedule starts right away when they play the state runner-up Trimble Tomcats in Week 1, where Coach Richards hopes the team's experience can help them come out on top.
Now from one top team to the next, how do the Bulldogs look this year, even after losing big names on the offensive side of the ball from last season?
Right, losing a player like Clay Davis may hurt most schools around the conference, but the Bulldogs recovered with ease. Bringing in flashy new playmaker to give this already potent offense a new way to attack defenses, junior Joey Moore was a receiver and primary returner for the Athens Bulldogs a year ago. But this year he is QB1, and with his explosive quickness, the Bulldogs' read options could be the key to their success.
Now both of these teams might be very difficult to stop again this year, but who is a dark horse team? Who could give the top two a run for their money?
Right, look, the Megs Marauders bring back the TVC Ohio leader in passing yards, as sophomore Coulter Cleveland seems poised to become one of the top quarterbacks in the conference. However, he lost a good amount of passing options to graduation and transfer, so look for new names like Weston Bear to step up for their QB. With a new coach and new playmakers, the Marauders could be ready for a turnaround season.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier how these two teams have already been there and done that by winning the TVC Ohio. Is it the same this year, even with new coaches throughout the entire conference?
Yeah, even throughout the conference, they've made a ton of changes, with 5 out of the 7 teams hiring new head coaches. And I still look for this conference as a whole, and both NY and Athens bring back big portions of their squads that were at the top of the conference a year ago, which leads me to believe both of these squads will be battling out yet again for the TVC Ohio title again, but most of the fighting will be coming in the middle, as we have the Megs Marauders, we have the Alexander Spartans, and the Vinton County Vikings battling for those 3 through 5. But as I see them falling as Megs in 3rd, Alexander 4th, and the Vikings taking spot number 5. Now, with Wellston and River Valley rounding out the rest of the conference, and if everything else shapes up as it should be, that final game of the year between the Athens Bulldogs and the Nelsonville York Buckeyes should be the fight for the TVC Ohio crown.
Yeah, even with that, we still have a full season to see if your prediction comes true. TVC Ohio football is going to be fun to watch this season for sure. Thanks, Jacob. And one of the reasons why the Nelsonville York Buckeyes are always in the mix for the TVC Ohio is because of All-State running back Keegan Wilburn. Senior reporter Thomas Garvick has more on Wilburn's thoughts headed into his senior year as a Buckeye.
Last year, Keegan Wilburn and the Nelsonville York Buckeyes fell short repeating as TVC Ohio champions. To get back to the top in 2019, it's all about one thing.
Mindset is everything. Playing sports, going through life, doing your work at school. It's all a mindset. You know, you tell yourself you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So I think keeping a good mindset, good attitude, and making sure that all of our guys are on the same page is pretty important.
And so what is the mindset for this year's Buckeye team?
I really don't think anything shy of 10-0 should be our expectation.
The quest to meet those expectations begins next Saturday, a date with longtime rival and state runner-up Trimble.
We go out there and play hard, have a good mindset, keep high energy. I don't see why we can't win that game, and I think we should win that game. Across the board, matchups, we look good, and they can use it as bulletin board material if they want, but I really do believe we're going to win that game.
One last chance to beat your rival and one last chance to go out on top in a Buckeye uniform.
It's really important for me, but I think most importantly, like getting our guys to believe in the same thing is the most important thing. I don't know if a lot of the younger guys get it yet that it's a big deal. Like you've got to be able to go out there and just play your hardest and put that as a goal when you step on that field. That's what you want to achieve.
For Gridiron Glory, Thomas Garber.
Now, Keegan was at Media Day with a cast on his wrist, so we'll be monitoring his status leading up to the Buckeyes Week 1 tilt with Trimble. Shout out to Thomas for the great work. The Frontier Athletic Conference may be our newest conference, but it still has plenty of big rivalries and important matchups. As it enters its third season, reporter Will Collins joins me to give us the lowdown on what to expect this year in the FAC.
Joseph, the third season of FAC play is going to be one to watch, and there have been plenty of changes to teams around the league. One of those changes is a change in culture and a new mindset at Miami Trace after seasons of struggling to find success. I was able to catch up with Panther head coach Jerry Williams this past Sunday at Media Day to talk about how his team has bought into their new mantra.
Our mantra this year is the climb, and we have to start somewhere. And the last two seasons, has been a struggle for us. It's been a struggle for getting the guys to buy in and things. Being the third season, these guys were sophomores when I began, and they bought in, and they're the ones that's got to change this culture and turn it around. And this is the one class that can start that climb.
Joseph, Miami Trace underwent a culture change to get ready for their season, but the Ironmen were prepping for their season tonight. They took on Ironton in a preseason jamboree game at home at Alumni Stadium. The jamboree started off with both teams trading series of 10 plays on offense and defense, and then they played a half of real football. Both in the series of 10 and the actual half of football, the Jackson defense came to play. The defensive line was constantly getting pressure on Ironton's quarterback and running backs, causing big disruptions in the backfield and tackles for loss. They were able to put Ironton in third and long situations and shut down the Tigers' dive running game.
Yeah, but how did Jackson's offense look tonight?
Joseph, the Jackson offense showed flashes of their potential for the season tonight, but struggled to get their run game going during the jamboree. They scored twice during the series of 10, and quarterback Jared Eisenhower showed off his arm on a 40-yard touchdown pass, but Ironton's defensive ends and linebackers seemed to be in the backfield every time Jackson tried to run.
Aside from the jamboree, we heard about a change in mindset in Miami Trace earlier, but what about the mentality in the rest of the FAC and how they stack up?
Well, Joseph, I have some preseason power rankings that might help. Starting at the top, we have the Jackson Ironmen. The Ironmen are the perennial powerhouse of this league, returning the senior leadership of quarterback Jared Eisenhower and powerful backfield duo of Bryce Parks and Bryce Graham. Coming in at number 2 is the Chillicothe Cavaliers. Despite losing longtime head coach Ron Hinton to retirement, they are primed for a fresh start under new head coach Jeff Pryor, and with an improved defense, they will be looking to fight for the top spot in the FAC. Third in the power rankings is Washington Courthouse. This year they have some key seniors returning from injuries that held them out last season, and a new quarterback that can sling the rock. What will hurt, though, is the departures of Gio Thomas and Dylan Stewart, but the Blue Lions have potential. Fourth on the list is Hillsborough. The Indians lost arguably their 3 best players in quarterback Mason Swain and running backs Josh Keats and Deion Burns to graduation, and look to fill those huge holes that those players left in that offense. Fifth is the McLean Tigers, who finished 5th in the league last season. McLean has the potential to shock their FAC opponents down the stretch with their determination to stay in games late. Sixth in the rankings is Miami Trace. After talking with the Panthers at Media Day, this team has changed their mindset, but they have a lot to prove after going winless in FAC play last year. Joseph, this season could be full of surprises, but we're going to have to wait until Week 10 to figure out who's vying for the crown.
Yeah, well, it is wide open. Thanks for the great work and the scoop on everything that is the FAC. Now, our social media team has been doing an amazing job all summer promoting our conferences. On your computer, make sure to go to woub.org/gridiron to read up on our team and our feature stories. And on your mobile devices, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and my account at GGHostJoseph, and add us on Snapchat. We also have our YouTube channel where you can find all of our video recaps and highlights. Now, a conference that had lots of success last year was the MVL. We saw both Sheridan and Tri-Valley make deep playoff runs. Joining me now is MVL lead reporter Paul Roth. And Paul, first up, I got to ask you about Sheridan. How are the Generals going to replace our player of the year, Ethan Heller?
Well, I mean, man, anytime a team is tasked with replacing the reigning Gridiron Glory player of the year, it's going to be tough. Well, Heller is a huge loss for this team, but that doesn't mean they're going to miss a step. They currently have a 2-quarterback battle between juniors Nate Johnson and Josh O'Ryan.
Yeah, we love a good quarterback competition, but who do you see has the edge so far?
Well, see, that's where things get a little tricky. O'Ryan is recovering from a torn ACL still that he suffered last season, but then even after considering that, it comes down to their game plan. Johnson is more of a scrambler. He's quick, and he's going to use his feet to bail him out when he needs to, whereas O'Ryan is more of a pocket passer and has the bigger arm. So really, at the end of the day, it comes down to what offense they want to run, but I did hear that we can't rule out the option of a quarterback tandem in Sheridan.
Great athletes. I mean, they both know the quarterback position so well. So, yeah, I mean, I think definitely they'll be rotating in and out. I don't think there'll be one sole guy by any means.
So we knew there was going to be a shakeup at QB for Sheridan with Ethan Heller leaving. But for the Crooksville Ceramics, they have a guy returning that they are really looking forward to having back on the field this year.
Yeah, after missing all of last season due to a torn ACL, Caden Miller is back on the field for the Ceramics, and let me tell you, Joe, this guy's a game changer.
All-state level talent before the injury. What kind of skill set does he bring to this football team now?
Well, Joe, this guy can do it all. He's comfortable in the pocket and can make the reads and the throws that you need him to, but he's also not afraid to use his feet and scramble when the pocket breaks down. Now, I'm sure the Ceramics weren't too happy with how last season panned out, but with Miller back on the field, I think this team has a real shot of getting into the playoffs.
Hard work it took to come back, you know, all the therapy you had to do. It was hard, I'm not going to lie, but I had a lot of support from my teammates and my coaches, and that was great. But I'm glad to be back. It was a long year.
So things are looking promising for Crooksville, but let's get to the top. Last year, that's where Tri-Valley finished for the 8th year in a row. Do you see any of these teams being able to unseat the Scotties?
Well, now that's tough to say. I got to give credit where credit is due. The Scotties have been the top dog for so long. But if I have to pick one, I think Philo has a real shot to take the conference this year. Well, this Philo team runs literally with this guy here, Casey Bunyan. This guy is the real deal. He's not the biggest, but he's one of the fastest, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear some Gridiron Glory Player of the Year chatter by the end of the season. The Electrics were young last year, but with Hunter Adolph back at quarterback for his senior year, this could be the season they take the leap.
Well, you've told us the hype for 3 of these teams, but realistically, how do you see the MVL shaking out this season?
Yeah, so I've tried to balance all that I've seen and heard this offseason with last year's finish, but really there's 3 tiers in the MVL. So first up, I got to give the nod to Tri-Valley. If you want to be the team, you got to beat the team. And the Scotties, they're that team. Next up, Sheridan. We talked about them losing Heller, but the amount of talent this team is bringing back on offense, it shouldn't matter who's under center. Coming in at 3rd is Philo, but like I said, keep an eye out for this team. They were young last year, and they are one of the biggest threats in this conference.
Now, for 4, 5, 6, you have John Glenn, New Lex, and Crooksville. What was the thinking there?
Well, John Glenn took a hit losing a number of guys such as Joseph Clifford, but they've shown they can be an MVL power, so they're just on the outside looking in at the top 3. And then I'm really excited for this New Lex football team. They could be another sleeper. And then let's just see with Crooksville. We know they're bringing some new things to the table. And then last 3 coming in, I have Maysville, Morgan, and West Muskingum. I see some bright spots for these teams, but they'll still have an uphill battle in such a talented MVL. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of different things that can happen. And if each team doesn't come ready to go every Friday night, this could be anybody's conference.
Well, there you have it. Sounds like there is a lot to look for in the MVL this year, for sure. Paul, thanks for coming on, my man.
Pleasure is always, Joseph.
All of us here at Gridiron Glory hosted the 4th annual Media Day event on August 18th, and we got to speak with the underrated talent that Southeastern Ohio has to offer. Here's a recap of the event that brought in more than 90 players and coaches to Schoonover Center at Ohio University.
More than 90 players from 18 teams and their coaches came and spoke with our reporters about their off-season workouts, the family mentality that drives their team, and the upcoming season at our 4th annual Media Day event. Every team is making improvements to compete in their league. Every team is trying to prove that they belong with last season's conference champions. Every team is bringing glory to their communities during the summer and are going to prove it when the bright lights turn on. Upstairs in our studio, I spoke with 12 coaches from all 4 of our conferences about their expectations for the upcoming season, who is stepping up for their team, whether it was a specific player or players or position group, the struggles and successes that come with coaching teams with a limited amount of players due to enrollment, and the new rules of a 40-second play clock and video replay for the playoffs that the OHSAA is enforcing. Every coach spoke about the potential their team has, but they all said their team's culture is what is pushing players to being successful on and off the field. To commemorate the event, players got their photos taken and even some fun GIFs for our social media team to post on our Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter accounts throughout the season.
Although I did not get to eat because the players ate all the delicious food we had, Media Day was an absolute success and one of the best moments we will have all season. We appreciate all the players and coaches that attended and love the support they give us to continue to cover their teams. Trimble and Athens, two powerhouse teams in the TVC, look to start their seasons off on the right note, and the two are going head-to-head. We go to TVC Ohio reporter Ethan Sands, who went to Athens High School for the Athens-Trimble jamboree tonight. Ethan?
What's going on, football fans? Yes, we are back on the gridiron. We're actually in Bulldog territory. At Athens High School tonight, the Trimble Tomcats visited the Bulldogs to see who would prevail, Bulldogs or Tomcats. Let's find out.
The Trimble Tomcats rolled into tonight's matchup being the early favorite after going to the state championship last season. They didn't take much time to try and figure out their offense. After a fumble recovery on defense, the Tomcats went to work. Todd Faust does his best two-step impression and goes by two Bulldog defenders to set up the first down. Cameron Kittle then tosses a dime off his back foot to Blake Guffey for the 35-yard touchdown to give the Tomcats a 7-0 lead in the first quarter and give them some good credit card hops to celebrate. Kittle wanted some contact and he got it. This 2-yard touchdown and takes the 14-0 lead. But co-captain Reese Wallace wouldn't be denied. Goes up for this pass from Joey Moore and gets beautiful position on this catch. Moore wanted to do just a little bit more and forces his way into the end zone to cut the Tomcats' lead in half. But the Tomcat defense has been the talk of the league, and they proved why today. Trimble bullied the backfield, and when someone got some breathing room for the Bulldogs, well, let's just say that didn't last very long.
And that's all we got for tonight's jamboree. The Athens Bulldogs lose this one 14-7 to the Trimble Tomcats. I'm Ethan Sands from Athens High School. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks for the coverage, Ethan. These are two teams that will be in the limelight throughout their season in the TVC Ohio and TVC Hocking. You won't want to miss these two in action. That does it for our previews for Episode 1. Tons of storylines to follow this season. It's going to be a good one for year 21. Next week, we will be talking about Week 1 games, and will we be at your school? Okay, I won't tease you. Here's the full screen of where we're going to be next week. In the TVC Ohio, one of the biggest rivalries we cover is happening right down the road. The Nelsonville York Buckeyes travel to Gloucester to take on the Trimble Tomcats. Lots of bad blood and trash talking and great players in this game. Two great coaches. It's going to be a good one. Alexander is going to take on Bradford to take on the Railroaders in Week 1. Spartans looking to start the season off on the right foot. Wellston takes on the Ironmen of Jackson, and we will be there to see those two go at it. Going to be a good Week 1 matchup for the FAC champions. And in the NVL, we are going to Dresden to see if the Scotties can continue their success. Tri-Valley is one of the most consistent ran programs in our coverage, and Week 1 is going to be a good test against Logan to see if they can keep that up. Well, Episode 1 is in the books. We're doing a new segment called Henny Take, and it's the final thought of the night. High school football is already amazing, and high school football in southeastern Ohio is an experience like nothing else. The bands playing the fight songs, the fans cheering loud no matter what the down or time is, the players fighting with heart every single down. There's nothing better than Friday nights in Gridiron Glory. You bring glory, we report it. See you next week, same time, same place.